It's something that I don't want to imagine because it's horrible. She didn't deserve this. She didn't ask for it. It wasn't her fault. I want her to know that. I want her to know that I'm very sorry for what I've done. I also want my family, my friends, all those in my life that have been here for me to know that I'm sorry for all the pain that I've caused them, for all the embarrassment, for all the broken trust, betrayal that they felt, everything. I can't imagine what they had to go through. I'm sorry. I'd also like to address this community. It's a beautiful valley with a community that's full of love. Love for the area, for the recreation, for all the opportunities this area provides for them. It's a place built around love of each other. I've seen that as I've been here, as I've worked here. And I shook that foundation that they're built on. It's something that I could never fix. I could never begin to comprehend how much damage I've done. And I'm sorry for that. In my closing, I'd just like to address all the law enforcement agencies that were involved in this as well. I know it's probably strange to hear, but I want to thank them for all their hard work and all their dedication, for all the time that they put in this to ensure that we got to where we are today. Because without them, I don't know where I would be. And because of their hard work and dedication, we can have closure to this, both myself and also this community. So I just want to say thank you to them.
All right, thank you for your comments, Mr. Neilson. Mr. Neilson, are you fully satisfied with the representation you received from the attorney in this case?
Yes.
And counsel, is there any legal reason why we cannot proceed with sentencing the defendant today?
No, Your Honor. I believe we can proceed, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Neilson, based on your plea of guilty, then it is the judgment of this court that you are guilty of the crime of rape in violation of Idaho Code 186101 subsection 4. I carefully reviewed the PSI in this case. It discusses your prior criminal record. And the court would note you don't have any prior criminal record, no juvenile offenses, no misdemeanors or prior felonies. The recommendation in that PSI report is for continued incarceration, meaning continued imprisonment. I've also reviewed the psychosexual evaluation, and that evaluation concluded with the statement that sex offender treatment would be appropriate if you're given that opportunity, but also indicated that you had a poor prognosis based on deception in your evaluation, in particular with the polygraphs and failure to disclose, and that's very concerning for this court. Additionally, I have reviewed the objectives of the criminal sentencing adopted by the Idaho Supreme Court in the case of State v. Toohill, which discusses things I have to consider, including the protection of society, the deterrence of the individual and the public generally, possibility of rehabilitation, and punishment or retribution for wrongdoing. I also looked at the factors in Idaho Code 1925-21, which were discussed by the prosecutor, Mr. Freese, in this case. In your case, Mr. Neilson has a balance of heavy factors weighing on both sides, including some mitigating factors that you don't have a prior criminal record. There is that low LSI score. You've got good family support. You have a history of employment. You've done some good things in your life. And then I look at the aggravating factors in this case, and starting with the comment I just made that you've got a somewhat poor prognosis, as indicated in the psychosexual evaluation. An indication of significant response and deceptions during the polygraphs is also, I think, an ongoing aggravating factor I have to consider when I look at this sentencing criteria. And then looking at this offense itself, which really is the most aggravating factor of all. Mr. Neilson, you committed a shocking crime. I've been in the law for about 25 years, and it's one of the worst things I've seen. And that includes 7 years as a prosecutor. I've also been a defense attorney and a judge, and you raped a random stranger. And that is something that very rarely happens and should never happen. And it's not happened very often in Idaho. I did some research looking over other cases, and I'll tell you, it's not a common thing. So this crime is a real outlier for what I'm considering. Your comment was, this woman came along and I impulsively had a sexual urge and I didn't control myself and then attacked and raped her. The rape was violent. The victim in this case, Ms. Nishio, had this petechiae eye that's been discussed. And I've seen that before in other cases as a prosecutor, defense attorney, or judge, and I'm trying to recall if I've seen a case where someone had petechiae and they weren't deceased. I know I've seen it with people that have died. I'm trying to remember if I've seen it with people that live, but what it tells me is this rape was so violent that she was literally fighting for her life. And this is because, as you state, this woman came along. And then after it happened, you got away with it. And were it not for the new DNA technology we have, I think you would have gotten away with it. She didn't know you, and you didn't know her, and there would have been no leads. And it's rather astonishing what can be accomplished now through science. And for over 2 years, the victim wondered, who did this? And no one knew. Now we do, and it was you. As I've mentioned, I have to look at these factors in protection of society and deterrence of others, and the possibility of rehabilitation and punishment or retribution for wrongdoing. And when I go down that list, everything on that list tells me that nothing short of prison would be any sort of justice in this case. When I look at protection of society, I look at the fact that you perpetrated this on a random stranger, and even though you did not have a prior criminal history of this, again, there are concerning things in your evaluation with a somewhat poor prognosis for rehabilitation, and the thought that this could even have a potential of occurring again causes me great concern. The point of deterring both you and others, I think, is very important to make in this case. I think this court has to send that message of deterrence that this is never going to be acceptable. The possibility of rehabilitation, I do believe, Mr. Neilson, that given time, you will have opportunities for rehabilitation, and therefore I've been asked by many of the victims' families and the victim to impose a life sentence, which I'm not considering at this point because I think there is at some point in the future a possibility of rehabilitation. And then the punishment or retribution for wrongdoing, and this certainly is a case that deserves punishment. The other thing I want to mention is you did have 2 chances, I think, after this happened to probably make things better for yourself, Mr. Neilson. First and foremost, if you would have turned yourself in, and you discussed that you wanted to do that, you didn't do it, that really would have made a big difference in how I view you as a person and alleviating the concerns I have in this case. But it was only after your identity was solved through this DNA collection, that anyone ever would have known who did this. And then after you were arrested and you had this opportunity to really fully participate in that psychosexual evaluation and disclose things and be honest in your polygraphs, you failed there as well. And those are two areas where it further drives home the point to me that this case really merits a significant term of imprisonment. I do honestly feel bad for you and your family. You've thrown your whole life away with one random act. But you've caused far more damage to this victim, her family and friends. And so I've considered the recommendations of the state, requesting 10 years of prison, 15 years indeterminate for a 25-year term. And I've also requested your counsel's recommendation for the retained jurisdiction. I do appreciate counsel's argument on both sides and the way you've conducted yourself in this case. On consideration of all that, Mr. Neilson, if you would stand, please, on the post sentence at this time. Pursuant to Idaho Code 1925-13, Mr. Neilson, it is the judgment of this court. You will be sentenced to the custody of the Idaho Department of Corrections for a fixed minimum term of 15 years, followed by an indeterminate term of 10 years, for a total unified sentence of 25 years. The court will recommend placement in a sex offender treatment during your term of incarceration. You'll be given credit for the time you served since you've been arrested in this case. The court will impose a fine in the amount of $1,000. There will be court costs for this count, which total $375, pursuant to Idaho Code 72-1025, as this is a sex offense with the additional fee. The court is going to impose a civil penalty under Idaho Code 1953-07 of $5,000 to be paid to the victim in this case, which is authorized by statute for the conviction under 1861-01. And on restitution, I'll ask the state, Mr. Freeze, is there a restitution requested from the state?
Yes, Your Honor, the state would request at this point 30 days to submit that restitution to the court.
All right, any objection to a 30-day time frame, Mr. Moulton?
No, Your Honor.
The state will be provided 30 days to submit restitution. If you need additional time, make a motion before that. If nothing's filed, then it would be waived, Mr. Freeze.
Thank you, Your Honor.
In addition, Mr. Neilson, you're going to be required to be registered as a sex offender for life, pursuant to Idaho Code 1883-07. And that will be the judgment of the court. Are there any questions regarding the first judgment, Mr. Freeze?
Not from the state, Your Honor.
Mr. Moulton, any questions?
Not at this time, Your Honor.